Allow me to paint you a picture. This is Ash, the local art nerd who resides near Denska, a once beautiful neighborhood that has fallen into ruin and disrepair. Despite it being a complete dump, covered in creepy pulsating vines, Ash likes hanging out in Denska, where he spends his time sketching and getting hassled by the local cool kids, a gang of street toughs that rip up Ash's sketchbook and shove him onto a train as part of an epic prank. The train takes Ash to a lighthouse, which is a weird thing to have an entire train for. They had to make a whole cable structure for it. Ash finds one of his sketchbook pages magically flying away from him like a big old tease. The page leads him inside the lighthouse, where he is confronted by a large ghost that resembles one of Ash's drawings, which he named Luna. The lighthouse ghost gives you a magic haunted paintbrush and helps you understand that the only way to save Denska is to drive away the darkness that has enveloped it, by painting all over it with graffiti. Peer pressured by a ghost into a life of crime, Ash sets out on a quest to use his skills to art all over Denska and hopefully turn it into less of a shithole. So get comfortable, grab your paintbrush, and let's go do some property damage. Welcome to Random Game Reviews. I put every game in the PlayStation Store into a spreadsheet, and I let a random number generator tell me what games I will play and review. However, for this episode, I put it up to my viewers to tell me what game they'd like to see me play, and drew randomly from that list. So this week, at the request of one of my beloved subscribers, I'll be playing Concrete Genie. Concrete Genie is one of the most unique platformer/adventure games I've ever played, because everything about it, the game mechanics, the story, the level design, is all there to fancifully support a very simple painting game. It's up to you to guide Ash through several areas of Denska to put art up on walls and push back the darkness strangling the town. To complete an area, you'll have to find every wall that has a string of lights and paint under it to turn the lights on and bring local grasses and plants back to life. It's not really freeform painting, as the elements you have at your disposal come from the torn pages of Ash's sketchbook that you can find and chase down all over town, and it's honestly a miracle most of them didn't fly into the ocean. Using these elements, you'll create little vignettes based on your personal aesthetic. One of the coolest things about this game is that any wall can be painted on, regardless of whether or not it's required for an objective, which turns the entire town of Denska into one big playground/canvas. You get to decide if you're a Bob Ross type, filling the world with happy little trees, or a Jackson Pollock just slapping paint all over the place. The game doesn't care if you do a good or bad job with your art. Taking your time with a careful masterpiece activates the lights just as much as scribbling a bunch of junk on the wall. But that's for the best, because after all, art is subjective. I found I liked to be very intentional with my paintings and got quite a lot of use out of the undo button. It takes a while to get used to how all of the different painting elements behave. Some trees you carefully form, and others you plop a seed down and watch it grow. Some elements can make an entire wall rain or snow, which is beautiful to look at. Some elements you can impact the shape of, some you can only impact the size. Others, like the northern lights and rainbows, let you paint however you want with them. One of the things this game made me reflect on is how I wish I was a bit more visually creative. I feel like a lot of the stuff I made in this game was rather basic compared to some of the beautiful artworks I've seen posted online. But the nice thing about Concrete Genie is it meets you where you're at. No matter how basic my art, the game supported me. I kind of felt like a toddler bringing art home from daycare, and the game is just like, wow, that's so good, Random Game Reviews. I'm so proud of you. There's no time limit to your painting, no critique. You're just free to make what you like, where you like. For the most part. Concrete Genie does have some parts to it that are a bit more paint by numbers, and they mostly have to do with the titular genies. Genies are little ghost buddies that you paint into existence using special genie pages from your sketchbook. They come in different styles and have different doodads you can paint on them. Creating the genies is quite fun, but the way they can come to life can surprise you. Like the time my sister-in-law put a tail on the wrong side of a genie and accidentally gave them a fur penis. Denska is an outrageously haunted place, just crawling with these well-meaning ghosts. The genies will help you progress through the game by clearing obstacles using their elemental abilities, and providing you with super paint, a premium paint required to clear darkness off walls. The genies will give you super paint when you paint them things they like, which is very cute. I just can't say no to them. There are also special moment spots where the genies will instruct you in the creation of a tableau that will unlock art in your sketchbook. The unlockable art doesn't serve a purpose, but it's another thing to do. You can summon genies to your location to help you with a task, but they need continuous walls unobstructed by dark vines to get to you, so securing their ability to navigate the level is one of the main puzzles of the game. I'm personally a big fan of the genies. I love watching them scamper excitedly about the levels like a bunch of golden retrievers at a dog park. They are welcome companions and are responsible for a lot of the game's charm. The end of each section will have you complete one big final tableau called a masterpiece, made of all of your collected painting elements. But rather than having free reign to make something epic, your genies will tell you exactly what to do, which is kind of an underwhelming way to finish a section of the game. But at least once you're done, Luna will fly down and say hello. Hi Luna! The only real issue I had with the painting is the controls. The developers really wanted their players to use the gyroscopic motion controls of the PlayStation controller to render your art, but I found it so awkward that I immediately switched to thumbstick control and never looked back. I also found the thumbstick kind of difficult to paint with, but it was still my vast preference. Considering that 90% of this game is painting, it feels like a fairly big misstep to not tighten up the controls, but I accept that might just be a me problem. So, what do you do with the other 10% of your time? Remember those bullies I mentioned at the top of the episode? They feature pretty heavily in Concrete Genie, and the rest of your energy will be invested in evading them. Much like how Ash has the power of art, the bullies have the power of always managing to be hanging out in whatever space is currently most inconvenient for you. If the bullies notice you, they will descend upon you like a tribe of baboons, so you will need to take advantage of the game's platforming mechanics to avoid them. Most ledges within reach can be climbed, which allows you to become king of the rooftops. You can zipline between buildings, as well as do some pretty bold maneuvering by treating sketchy pipes like jungle gym equipment. In fact, I'm not even sure why these kids bully Ash in the first place. He is the most badass parkour kid ever. At one point, they will watch him scale a crane and then jump off it onto a nearby roof like some kind of teenage demigod. If someone at my school did that, they would have been declared king of the school forever. But instead, they're too busy busting on him for liking art. Thankfully, you can take advantage of their single-mindedness. By taunting them, you can pull them away from wherever they're hanging out and quickly put art up in their vacated spot. The bullies don't seem super smart, as they lose track of you the minute you climb something, even if they watch you do it. It's as if climbing messes with their sense of object permanence. They forget you can climb, or in fact, that they could climb if they wanted to. And they're pretty quick to give up their pursuit for a bunch of kids who don't seem to do anything besides loiter and relentlessly hunt you. Without giving too much away, the bullies factor pretty heavily in the story, and through the power of art, you'll learn that the bullies all have their own problems and traumas. Functionally, the bullies make you cherish the moments of peace when they're not around and you can focus on your painting. The nuisance that they cause helps make it feel like more of a game because when it comes down to it, Concrete Genie is just a mellow, platforming puzzle/art game. Or so I thought. Towards the end of the game, things get kind of intense. Something happens in the story, and all of a sudden you're contending with evil, gooey genie monsters, and the game transforms from a pretty decent painting game to a pretty weak action game. You will be imbued with some elemental powers to do battle with the dark genies, as well as the ability to zip around the level using a skill called paint skating, which is admittedly pretty dope. The fighting mechanics are clunky, simplistic, and completely out of place in this chill art game. Oh, and the genies kidnap the bully kids and torture them so they can feast on their trauma. I didn't need Concrete Genie to get this dark. I just wanted to paint some rainbows and flowers and shit. This late game change-up was an unexpected and kind of unnecessary shift in tone. By switching from art to combat, it was almost like the game was trying to tell me something. Thankfully, if you decide you don't want to do the combat, you can always quit and hop onto free paint mode and just paint pretty things to your heart's content. I understand the developers wanting to introduce some tension to Concrete Genie, which is otherwise basically a PSA for the importance of public art projects, but I feel like maybe they could have used a lighter touch. It would have been nice to see that energy invested into making the story a bit more dynamic. The background to the town's predicament is vaguely explained in some newspaper clippings you find lying around, one of which suggests that the darkness is a manifestation of the loss of hope. Which, sure. If the theme is restoring hope to Denska, there are other ways to tell that story that are more in keeping with the vibe of the game. In general, I think Concrete Genie has more working for it than against it, and the weird combat section didn't undo my enjoyment of the game overall. It's an interesting experience, and the game's greatest achievement is that all the art you create stays up on the walls. There's something peaceful and serene about making each wall look as nice as you can. and it's cool to walk through a town you've completely transformed and see all the little art pieces you forgot you did. It's a game where you can really leave your mark. This is probably the most beautiful game I've reviewed so far. It's wonderfully rendered with a hand-drawn look that translates surprisingly well to 3D. The lighting is excellent, the environments are great, and the effects on your painted objects make everything feel alive and majestic to behold. The game is VR enabled as well, and that's something I'll come back to check out when I eventually get a VR headset. If I had one visual complaint, it's that in a grimy, wet-ass, damp town like Denska, the puddles should splash when you jump in them. As I finished my time with Concrete Genie, something struck me. Thinking back to the beginning of the game, Ash never would have met Luna, or got his magic paintbrush, or saved Denska, if those bullies hadn't ruined his stuff, hurt his feelings, and shoved him onto that train. In a way, I think that makes the bullies the real heroes of this story. So because this doesn't get said enough, I just wanted to say, thanks, bullies. It's time to answer the question, would I play this game if I were not destined to do so? For Concrete Genie, the answer is yes. Concrete Genie was a nice break from mainstream gaming, as it allowed me to slow down and focus my attention on just making stuff that looks nice. There aren't enough art games out there, and this is a very nicely packaged one. It looks lovely, it's charming, and it has all those awesome genies, and they're just great companions. I felt the controls could have been a bit better, and aside from that, my only issue with it was a somewhat unwelcome tonal shift in the late game. I really enjoyed Concrete Genie, and I wanted to thank my viewer Babe Lightyear for suggesting it. One cool thing I discovered about Babe Lightyear is she's very interested in AI-generated art, so I had her ask the AI to make this beautiful image based on the prompt, Random Game Reviews. Behold, art, rendered by an unfeeling machine. I really feel like it nailed the vibe though. Thanks as always for joining me. If you want to stay up to date on what's going on behind the scenes of Random Game Reviews or be in the know ahead of time for the Saturday night live streams, join me on the Random Game Reviews Discord channel. The link is in the video description. Until next time, make sure to clean your paintbrushes, press the like button to help expose my nonsense to the masses, and I'll see you soon on Random Game Reviews.